Welcome to Risk Watch. I'm Jonathan Ferguson. Anti-money laundering systems are a source of frustration to many financial institutions. Often, they generate so much white noise that it drains a BSA department's limited resources clearing alerts that seldom lead to suspicious activity reports. A little extra effort spent on getting a better read on customers can make a big difference in the long run. It all depends on how you look at your data. Here to explain is Ken Agle of AdvisX. Ken?
Thanks, Jonathan. I once had a teacher share with me an analogy that I think has applicability here. So bear with me for a minute. This is 2D Bob. He lives in a 2D world where everything exists on a single flat plane. One day, 2D Bob meets 3D Jill. He can hear her voice, but from his perspective, all he sees of Jill are 4 disconnected shapes, which are actually the soles of Jill's shoes. Needless to say, Bob is rather confused at Jill's odd appearance. In an effort to make things a little more comprehensible for Bob, Jill passes through the floor of Bob's world, plane by plane, which befuddles Bob until she stops when she gets halfway through her head. Jill now looks recognizable to Bob, but she tells him that there is actually much more to her than what he sees. Ever since I heard that analogy, whenever I find something that seems befuddling or complicated, I find it can be helpful to seek to add a third dimension into the equation. I have especially found this to be the case in my many years of conducting AML system validations, risk assessments, and look-back projects for credit unions and banks. Let's start with the first dimension, or the x-axis. If AML systems consisted of a single dimension, it would most likely consist of assigning a risk rating to each customer based on their definition, low on one end, high on the other. In the BSA AML examination manual, there are broad definitions of customers who pose specific risks due to the nature of their business occupation or anticipated transaction activity, such as cash-intensive businesses and professional service providers. Now let's take a look at the y-axis. Although transaction activity within any financial institution has seemingly unlimited complexities, we can usually classify most transactions to a finite set of types that we call the Big Seven. They are currency, checks, monetary instruments, electronic, loans, fund transfers or wire, and exchanges. Even within these 7 categories, there are certain cross elements, but for the most part, it comes down to money coming in, going out, or a combination of the two, debits and credits. It may not always be so two-dimensional, but there is typically an order to the flow of funds. If you assign customers or members into a risk category based on their transactional data and put that on the y-axis, you may have something that looks like this. Typically, the closer a member or customer is to the upper right corner of this grid, the greater the scrutiny, or the greater the frequency of the review. As beneficial as it is to add the y-axis into the equation to enhance the efficiency of an AML system, even that two-dimensional world can lead to too many unproductive alerts. As such, it can be helpful to introduce the third axis, the z-axis. The z-axis is what we refer to as outlier risk factors. The specific outliers will vary based on what data the financial institution has available. For example, if you have 100 customers who own restaurants, their transaction levels could be compared with each other in search for outliers. A restaurant in a resort town that makes heavy deposits throughout the year when other restaurants slow down significantly in the off-season may be in the HHH section of the cube and warrant closer scrutiny. Another example, but less obvious, would be a customer who is a low risk by definition, low risk by transaction activity, but turns out to be a high risk by outlier activity. This customer may be attempting to fly under the radar and should definitely be of interest to your BSA team. When facing complex challenges of living in a 3D world, limiting yourself to Bob's 2D vision can mean your institution is devoting far more resources to conducting due diligence and clearing alerts than necessary. Adding Jill's 3D perspective allows you to determine with greater precision where the highest risks are, including those that might evade 2D detection, so that you can concentrate your available resources on where they will be most effective.
Thanks, Ken. For more information about AML system enhancements, or to contact Ken, please visit riskinbox.com/resources. I'm Jonathan Ferguson for RiskWatch. Thanks for watching.